Hey everyone and welcome. If you're gearing up for your CA Foundation exams, you know how important business law is. And one topic that always pops up in case studies is the unpaid seller. It can feel a little complicated, but don't worry, we're going to break it all down today, get you totally exam ready, and make sure you know exactly what to do when a buyer doesn't pay up.
So let's just jump right into the core problem. Picture this. You run a business. You've sent out a massive shipment of goods, you've done your part perfectly, but the payment never comes. You're left with no goods and no money. So what are your options? What can you legally do? Well, that's the exact question we're going to answer today using the Sale of Goods Act. Okay, here's our game plan. First, we've got to figure out who exactly the law considers an unpaid seller. Once we've got that down, we'll unlock the seller's three main powers over the goods themselves: the right to hold them, the right to stop them mid-delivery, and even the right to sell them to someone else. After that, we'll look at how you can sue the buyer directly, and we'll wrap it all up with the most important takeaways for your exams.
All right, first things first. Before you can even think about using any of these cool legal powers, you have to officially qualify as an unpaid seller. Honestly, if you get this definition wrong in an exam, the rest of your answer just won't hold up. So let's make sure we nail this. The law gives us two really simple conditions. The first one is, has the whole price been paid? And that word whole is super important. Even if you're short by just 1 rupee, you're technically unpaid. The second condition covers things like checks. If you took a check as payment and it bounces, well, the condition of that payment failed. In either case, boom, you are officially an unpaid seller. Let's look at a quick example. In this scenario, X sells goods worth $50,000. Y pays a big chunk of it, $40,000, but still owes $10,000. Since the whole price hasn't been paid, the law is clear. X is an unpaid seller and now has access to all the legal rights we're about to discuss. And here's that second condition in action. P accepts a check. Now you got to remember, a check isn't final payment until it actually clears. When that check bounces, it's like the payment never happened. So P is right back where they started, as an unpaid seller. So, you've passed the test. You are officially an unpaid seller. What's your first move? Well, if you still physically have the goods with you, your first line of defense is something called the right of lien. The right of lien is super simple. It's your right to keep the goods. The key word here, and the one you have to remember for your exams, is possession. As long as the goods are still in your warehouse or your shop, you can legally refuse to hand them over until you get paid. It's as simple as that. No possession, no lien. So, when exactly can you use this power? The law gives you 3 main situations. 1, it was a cash deal and the buyer hasn't paid. 2, you gave them credit but their time is up. And 3, this one's a biggie, the buyer becomes insolvent. If that happens, it doesn't matter if their credit period is still active. You can use your right of lien immediately. Okay, but what if the goods have already left your building? They're on a truck, on a train, on their way to the buyer. You've lost possession, so your right of lien is gone. Is it game over? Not a chance. This is where your second amazing power comes into play, the right of stoppage in transit. If lien was all about retaining possession, this one is about regaining it. You can literally call the shipping company and tell them to stop the delivery and bring your goods back. Now, this is a really powerful right. So the law has 4 strict conditions you have to meet. You have to be unpaid. You must have already handed the goods over to a carrier, the goods have to still be on their way, and, this is the most critical part, the buyer must have become insolvent. You can't just stop a shipment because of a late payment. Insolvency is the trigger. Now, pay attention to this slide, because comparing these two is a classic exam question. So let's lock this in. Lien is about retaining possession. Stoppage is about regaining it. For lien, the seller has the goods. For stoppage, a third-party carrier has them. Lien can be used even if the buyer is perfectly solvent, but stoppage can only be used if the buyer is insolvent. And the timing is beautiful. Lien ends when you lose possession, which is the exact moment that the right of stoppage can begin. Okay, so you've used your right of lien and kept the goods, or you've successfully stopped them in transit. Great, you have the goods back, but you still don't have your money. This brings us to the final play. The right to resell. But hold on, you can't just go and sell the goods to the first person you see. The law is very specific. You can resell immediately if the goods are perishable, like vegetables or milk. For anything else, you have to give the original buyer a formal notice that you're planning to resell. If they still don't pay after that, you're good to go. Or, if you were really smart, you put a resale clause right in the original contract. You might be thinking, What's the big deal with a notice? It's just a piece of paper. I have the goods, they didn't pay, I'm just gonna sell them. But trust me, from both an exam standpoint and a real-world financial one, this notice is a game changer. So does it really matter? Oh, absolutely. And here's why. This is a huge point for case studies. If you give proper notice, you are completely protected. If you resell at a loss, you can sue the original buyer for the difference. And if you resell for a profit, that profit is all yours to keep. But if you resell without notice, everything flips. You can't sue for any loss. And get this, if you make a profit, you have to hand it over to the original buyer who didn't pay you. That little notice makes all the difference. So far, all the rights we've talked about have been against the goods themselves. But what if that's not enough to cover your losses? Well, the law also gives you rights against the buyer as a person. It's time to take them to court.
These are your personal remedies. You can file a suit for price, which is exactly what it sounds like. You're suing for the full contract price. If the buyer refuses to even accept the goods in the first place, you can file a suit for damages for non-acceptance. And don't forget, you can also sue for interest on the amount that's been overdue.
All right, let's start to wrap things up. We've gone through the unpaid seller's entire toolkit. But to give you a complete, well-rounded answer in your exams, it's really important to remember that the law is fair. What happens if the seller is the one who messes up? The buyer has rights too. So just to give you the full picture, if the seller is the one who breaches the contract, the buyer can sue them for damages if the goods never arrive. If the item was something unique, like a famous painting, they can sue for specific performance to force the seller to hand over that exact item. They can also sue if the goods are faulty, that's a breach of warranty, and they can get interest back on any money they paid up front. It's all about balance.
And this table right here, this is your ultimate revision guide. It brings everything we've talked about into one neat package. You've got your rights against the goods, lien, stoppage, and resale, and you've got your rights against the buyer, your lawsuits. The most important column for case studies is the last one, the deciding factor. Lien is all about possession. Stoppage hinges on the buyer's insolvency during transit, and resale depends on the type of goods or whether you gave that crucial notice.
So I'll leave you with one final thought to chew on, something for those really tricky case studies. When an unpaid seller resells goods to a brand new, innocent buyer, that new buyer gets a perfect title to the goods, even if the seller messed up and forgot to give notice to the original buyer. Why do you think the law protects the new buyers so strongly? It's all about promoting trust and keeping business flowing smoothly. If you can answer that, you're ready for anything. Good luck with your exams!